everybody, it's Louise and Fiona here at Sacred Space. Sacred Space is in Manly, Australia, Sydney, and we're a spiritual store specialising in all sorts of different products and services. And tonight we've got a global cosmic chat with Fiona. Fiona's a specialist in our psychic development classes, and she's also our Akashic record reader, where she does work specifically with people to move through soul blocks where they become conscious of issues that they can't seem to transition through. So tonight we're talking about psychic development, and we do have some courses coming up in psychic development that start in March. So we have a level 1, a level 2 and a level 3, which begins on the 20th of March. And give us a wave or a hand, like a hi on the screen if you can tell us who you are and where you're from. That would be great. If you have any questions as we're going, it might be better for you to list them as we go, and then we'll come back to them and go through everything. And if somebody could tell us if the music's too loud and if you can hear us, that'd be really great. Actually, could you turn that down a little bit. So who have we got? We can't see any comments yet. Let's just see. Nothing. Okay, we've got 3 people on the screen. Okay, so we just had a conversation together about first of all, I'd like to introduce Fiona again to the people that are now watching.
Hi.
Fiona works for us in psychic development and the Akashic records and reading for people about their soul records. And first of all, I'd like to talk to Fiona about how she originally developed, how she got into working in psychic development, how she eventually ended up in a TV career in psychic development and reading for people, and how she was drawn into learning about the Akashic records.
Okay, cool. Well, hi everyone. So my intuitive journey really started when I was quite young, and I used to have beautiful conversations with my mother about all things weird and wonderful, and she was very intuitive herself and had this capacity to use her intuitive skills, which she talked about quite often. My father was always completely the other way. He wasn't at all into this sort of thing, and he used to just shut it down. But we would have these lovely conversations. So I kind of grew up feeling that being intuitive was quite a natural thing. And I didn't realise at the time, but I have looked back recently and realised that whenever I used to meet people, I would kind of read them, I suppose, intuitively through my feeling senses, rather than noticing what they looked like or what they were saying. I would really be feeling into them and kind of noticing how they made me feel, which is something we'll get to in a moment when we talk about clairsentience. So from a very young age, I was kind of working with my intuitive abilities, and I do believe that a lot of us do that when we're young anyway. We just don't realise it because it's very natural to us to work that way. And then we get older, we have life experiences, we go through all those ups and downs in life, and we tend to, through our outer influences from people around us, of course, from our own experiences, we kind of tend to lose our connection to our intuition a little bit. And I did that very much as I went into my teens and my early 20s. And then, unfortunately, my mother passed when I was quite young. I was only in my mid-20s. And I went to have a reading with somebody who just absolutely blew me away in terms of the information that she gave me about my mother. And that really kind of lit a little flame inside me of wanting to explore that side of myself again and try and get a little bit more understanding around this part of me that I'd really kind of let go of and detached from. So I went on a journey of starting to learn different things, seeking out people who taught different ways ways of working with your intuition, and it just opened up a kind of whole new way of being for me. The frustrating part for me was that I started to learn about intuition, but everyone always talked about clairvoyance, and I spent a frustrating few years trying to be able to see things and couldn't really see anything, and people around me would say, oh, I can see this and I can see that, and I could never see anything, so I got quite frustrated, which made me give up on it actually for a few years, until I went to a mutual friend of ours actually, Susan Rudd, and had a few classes with her, and I remember her talking in the class about this clairsentience, this word, and I didn't know what the word was. I'd never heard it before. Of course, I think most of us are quite familiar with it these days, but this was going back quite a few years. And I went home and I looked it up and I read what a clairsentient was, and it was this wonderful light bulb moment where I realised that instead of seeing things, I was actually feeling them in my own body, and from then onwards, my own intuitive journey became much easier, of course, as I understood my own process and the way that my intuition worked. And that was just me jumping on a train then of learning, doing lots of courses, exploring different ways of using my intuition, and then eventually starting my own business where I became a reader and a healer, working with people intuitively. And that was about 10 years ago. And from then, after about 3 or 4 years, I started to work on television, giving readings to people, and I also jumped into teaching other people how to work with their intuitive abilities. So it was a kind of beautiful journey, quite an organic journey for me, of sort of exploring my intuition and then living my life, and then exploring my intuition and then living my life, and then coming back to it, and now it's kind of part of my life full time.
I would say to people when they first start to awaken that you have to step in and step out, and your higher self guides you, and you go off and do one course and you come back and you've got to do a 3D job, and then you go into another course and it says go to the other side of the earth and go and study with this teacher, and so you keep going backwards and forwards, and you have to step in and step out as you step up in working, working towards professionally working in the industry.
Absolutely.
It takes quite a long time to get through that process, and some people it's just a case of learning how to explore their own intuition so that it helps them guide them through life. Not everybody becomes spiritually adept that they want to hold space for people every single day of the week. So
that's right. Yes, I mean not everybody uses it as in a professional capacity, of course, but whatever you choose to do with your own intuition, it can benefit you in lots of different areas of your life. And I think that inner journey that you go on as you're exploring your own intuitive abilities really helps everybody. So it's a
It
wonderful
ripples
process.
out through your whole family unit, and it also allows you, as you go through and learn how to hold space for other people that are important to you in your life.
Absolutely.
And it also helps you to be able to cope better when things do go wrong. There's, every time you seem to step up the ladder, you've got to go down to come up each time. In varying degrees.
That's right, and I love that you described it as an organic process as well, where you dip into it and dip out of it. That was certainly my experience, and I think we're here to live a physical life, and our life sometimes gets in the way of our intuitive development. Eventually the two can run side by side, but when you're exploring that in the beginning, sometimes life just gets in the way and you have to focus on other things, especially if you've got a family and other things that take your time. But that's the wonderful thing about developing your intuition. You can do it all as and when you need to, or when you're drawn, when you're intuitively guided to do it, actually. It's the best way.
So one of the things that I talk to people about when they come in is Fiona facilitates a process of immediately exploring what your primary, secondary, tertiary channels of communication between your higher guidance and how you sense and perceive information, which is extrasensory perception. And I always talk to people about the fact that the universe speaks back to you and mirrors through synchronicities. It mirrors through mirroring, where it becomes ridiculous from one situation where it tells you about something to many different situations that are mirroring the same awareness to you.
Sure.
And where was I going with that just a minute ago? I've forgotten. I was just talking about what I communicate to people about psychic development. It's all linked into trying to ascertain at the beginning what you are, how you sense and perceive energy, and how it comes through to you, and how to improve those channels of communication between you and source. So, or higher self, or whatever you believe is your extrasensory information that you receive. And so Fiona and I were having a discussion a few minutes ago about the types of clair abilities. So each of these sensing abilities, and whether there's 6 or whether there's 7, I'm just going to read from this about the different types, and then we're going to go into a discussion about those different types of sensing abilities. And there are, the most commonly known one is clairvoyance, and clairvoyance is transmitted as an image that flies into the back of your mind, almost like a postcard, or it can look like video going from left to right. It depends how voyant you are. Clairaudience, which is obviously talking about how we receive information through, which is at an auditory level. Clairsentience, which is the empathic way of sensing and perceiving, which your predominant senses are.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And then there is clairsent, which is something that Fiona doesn't teach within her course, but it's about sometimes we will smell an energy when we're sensing and perceiving. Mm-hmm. And then there's clairgustance, which is clear tasting, which I've only sensed a few times. Mm-hmm. And claircognizance, which is clear knowing, where you just receive everything in a moment. So, would you like to talk about, within your course you have like the four primaries that you teach to people.
Sure.
So I'll hand it back over to you.
Okay, so with my own journey, as I said earlier on, I found it a bit of a frustrating process because I hadn't really understood that I was primarily a clairsentient person. So I was looking to see or hear information rather than feel it. And so for a couple of years, or maybe even a bit longer than that, I was missing the clues or the way that information was showing up for me. So I designed this course around the 4 most commonly found natural clair abilities that we all hold. So it's my belief, I don't know if you share this belief, it's my belief that we're all intuitive, and that the only difference between someone like myself and Louise, who works on a day-to-day basis with our intuition, and someone out there who's just beginning to start working with their intuitive abilities, is the amount of time that we put into developing it and growing it and connecting to our intuition. And some people hold, in their soul level, they hold strong connections to specific intuitive abilities, and other people don't. But we can all develop it. So the 4 main ones that are most commonly found in people are clairvoyance, clear seeing, clairaudience, clear hearing, clairsentience, clear feeling, and claircognizance, which is clear knowing. And so the course is based on those 4. So to look at those individually and see, and you can maybe start to get a little bit of an idea of what you might be, or where your strongest clair ability is sitting at this point. Clairaudience is really all about hearing. So it means that you're an auditory person. So you sense or you process information in your environment through your hearing ability. So you notice voices, sounds, and words. And for people that are primarily clairaudient, sometimes if they're not sure about this, or if they don't know that they are clairaudient, this can be a little bit scary, because they can hear sometimes a voice in their head, They can hear their own voice in their head sometimes and think that that's their mind making it up. Or they can hear voices outside of their head that aren't their own. But primarily, they're hearing information other than something that they're creating themselves. And the most important thing about clairaudience is that you listen to the words between words. So when someone is speaking to you, you often hear information in your head that's giving you more around what they're saying or what they're speaking about, which is your clairaudient guidance. So clairaudience basically means that you're listening or you're hearing things in your own mind or outside of your mind that are feeding you intuitive information.
And I find some people, when they first go through their awakening process of opening up all of a sudden to their sensing abilities, if they are clairaudient, they tend to, not everybody does this, of course, but some people become very ungrounded, and it's like they just verbalize everything that's coming out, and they think that every single instruction they've got to follow. And there's a lack of discernment about, they struggle with understanding what's grounded information,
Yeah.
and what should be communicated and what shouldn't be communicated and held back. So one of the very valuable lessons to clairaudient people is learn what you need to speak out loud and slow it down, because some people have a real problem with becoming more conscious about when they're communicating that information, the energy that's behind it and how it flows out of their mouth also has intention and energy behind it. And if you slow down the frequency and make it more grounded as you communicate, the messages are going to be conveyed so much better.
Absolutely, that's so
Because
true. Yes.
Otherwise, people think you're not. This is sounding a bit crazy. It's sounding a bit schizophrenic or whatever. So
they feel a bit crazy too
Yeah.
when that's happening as well, because very often when you start to open up to your intuition, once you open up, it comes through very quickly, and that
Yeah.
can be really hard to deal with at the very beginning. And grounding, as you say, is the most important tool to work with whenever you're developing your intuitive abilities, and that's something that we cover in the course as well, is how to ground yourself as you open up to this information.
yeah, because you have to explore it gradually. That's why ascension processes of upgrading your energy would fry you if you had it all at once. You've got to do
Absolutely,
it
yeah.
progressively, and you've got to learn progressively.
Yeah.
Now we should talk about empathy.
Yeah, well, shall I talk about
Okay.
clairvoyance? Because that seems to be the one
Okay.
that most people know about. I mean, clairvoyance or being a clairvoyant is a term that's used a lot. In fact, a lot of people call themselves clairvoyant when in fact they're actually using their other clair abilities as well, but it's just a general term that we tend to use for this kind of work. So I called myself a clairvoyant for many years, even though my primary way of intuiting information is through my feelings. So clairvoyance is visual. It means that you process your environment through shapes, through colours, through images, through pictures, and as Louise said earlier on, through moving images. And these are all taking place in your mind, in your mind's eye. And so there's a very strong connection with clairvoyance and opening up your third eye and being able to see information. So there's a little exercise, if you want to do this, that you can try now at home, just to see if clairvoyance may be one of your strongest clair abilities. And if you just close your eyes now, and then just bring into your imagination, bring into your mind's eye the colour red. And as you do that, just notice whether you can see red really clearly. Is it bright? Can you really see the colour? Or can't you see the colour at all, but you know that red is there? And then you might like to try changing the colour to blue and see whether you can see that blue colour clearly. and whether you notice a difference in your mind's eye between those two colours. So it's just a little quick exercise that you can do that gives you an idea of whether clairvoyance is one of your strongest abilities, and it helps you to identify that for yourself. For me, when I'm looking at colours, I feel the colours, so I do it in a very different way, but for a clairvoyant person, they will see those colours really clearly. So clairvoyance is all about what's visual in your mind's eye. And even if you are clairvoyant though, actually using your normal eyesight, people who are naturally clairvoyant do have a really good way of looking at things as well. They have a way of seeing behind things. So, you use your normal sight as well, but most of your clairvoyance is done within your mind's eye. And I know you're primarily clairvoyant, so you've probably got some more to add to that.
I do have heaps to add to that. I always talk to people about one of the first levels of opening to channel and pulling light through and breathing in and pushing the energy. It's learning how to pull and push energy that helps you to clean your energy. It's one of the spiritual practices. But the next level is to learn how to tune into colour. And so I'm so adept at pulling in whatever I want to. I can merge colours, I only have to think it for a split second and I can see that energy running. It's quite incredible. The more you use your psychic abilities, your sensing abilities, and all those colours have really amazing healing energy signatures. Like the crystals have really amazing energy signatures to them. And I love being clairvoyant, but I'm also claircognizant and clairaudient.
Okay.
And sometimes I just get everything I need to know in a seed of light.
Yes, and this is really what happens. So in the course we focus on developing your primary one first of all, because it's easier to develop something that comes naturally to you. It's much easier to tap into that and start to work with it and create an open channel to start working with. And then what you generally find is as you develop your primary one, your strongest one, the other ones start to kick in. Now, I work with all of mine now, but still for me, sentience, feeling is the thing that I start with. And then my clairvoyance will kick in to give me a clearer picture, and then I might get a few words coming in, and then I get my inner knowing telling me that that's exactly what I need to know. So, eventually you work with all of them, but I think you always are predisposed to working with the one that's most natural to you. And for people out there who may feel clairvoyant, often one of the signs that your clairvoyance is being triggered is that you start to see colours in your mind's eye. So when you close your eyes, it starts to fill with colour. And this is your third eye opening. It's very common for people to see purple or a bluey purple colour in their mind's eye when their clairvoyance is starting to expand. I know it did for me.
I don't even remember. Ever since I was a child, I've been able to see things that normal people don't normally see.
That's right.
I think, though, channeling is different to being able to see things that people can't normally see.
It is. Yes, absolutely.
And I'm a fan of channeling because channeling is an amazing journey on the inner and connection to the universe that I wish I could tell the whole world about, because they're missing out on inner Netflix.
That's a great way to put it. I like that.
Yeah, basically using your satellite dish to tune into whatever frequency you want to tune into.
Yeah. So the next one then is clairsentience, which, I have to put my hand up. So yeah, that's me.
Which I have no point of reference for.
Right, okay.
You definitely can. I'm really interested to see what you say about it.
So clairsentience means that you're a kinesthetic person. So you process your environment through touch and through feelings. So when you meet somebody new as a clairsentient person, you're not so much looking at that person, you're not hearing what they're saying. What you're noticing is how they make you feel in your own body. So it's a sensation that is held within you. It's a feeling sense that your body gives you. And And so the more you develop your clairsentience, the more sensitive you become to these feeling senses. And these feeling senses can be things like butterflies in your stomach, or that kind of gut feeling. We can very often feel our clairsentience in our solar plexus chakra, because that's our feeling center. Or you get those goosebumps on your arm, or that little tickle at the back of your neck. All of those are sort of feeling senses that come along with clairsentience. So it means that you process everything around you through your feelings. So you will always be in tune with what you feel in your own body. The downside with this one is that you can often become a little bit confused around what is your stuff and what is other people's stuff, because when you're feeling something, if you're picking up sadness in someone else, for example, you might wonder why you're feeling sad all of a sudden if you're not aware of the fact that you're clairsentient and you're really feeling what they're going through. So clairsentience to me has always been about noticing what is happening in my own body and what my body's showing me, and being very aware that that necessarily isn't my own stuff. It's something that I'm taking on from other people.
That's quite interesting for me to process myself, and in a minute we'll talk to everybody that's watching and any comments that are coming up. I can sense sometimes with people where they've got a problem, it pops up in my physical being, in my energy field, and I know that they've got a problem in their throat, or they've got a problem in their back, or they've got an illness, and I didn't quite realise that was my clairsentience coming through, as well as there was some other element to what you were saying just a minute ago, where, oh yes, that's right, when spirit is around, I actually get little taps on my face, and that's my calling to know, hang on, there's somebody around.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I never really thought that was connected to clairsentience.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it?
So I think of it as how a clairsentient processes everything through the solar plexus. But what you're saying to me is that a clairsentient is a connection to the body where you sense that isn't yours. And I do get those alarm bells sort of going off, where I know that it's to do with the client and I communicate that message back to them, but I haven't made that link because I don't tend to feel things, whereas empaths often talk, or that's the other word for a clairsentient person, empaths often talk about everything that they communicate is through their feelings, what they're feeling all the time.
Yes.
And it comes out in the words, in how they're speaking, because they keep referring back to feeling.
Yes.
And yet, on some level, I didn't quite understand how they sense and perceive, because this is not my main field.
That's right. And I think that there's a really strong misconception between being a clairsentient and being an empath. I see them as two very, very different things. And so one of the things that you learn about in the course, of course, is the difference between those two things, and how to understand the difference. Because people that are empathic, do you want me to talk about this a little bit?
Yes. So I was going to say empathy is not an empath. Is that right?
They're different. Yeah, I mean, we can all have empathy for other people, but some people are empathic, which means that they do something with their energy. It's actually a conscious thing, even though we might do it subconsciously. But to be an empath, what you actually do is you send your energy from your own body, and you feel into somebody else's energy field. Right. And then you pull that back in to your energy, so that you can experience what that other person is going through. Very often we get disempowered empaths. I know I was a disempowered empath, because not only am I clairsentient, I'm also an empath, which does happen too, but that doesn't mean one has to mean the other. But as a disempowered empath, what you generally do is you keep that in your energy. It becomes part of sensing. It's another way of sensing, but it's different to being clairsentient.
Okay, so does an empath consciously push out their energy from their solar plexus and push a feed line out to a person's energy and pull the energy back in order to read it?
It's almost as if what they're doing is they're actually pushing their energy out, sensing in, thinking, yes, I want to be empathic to this person. It's done from a heart-centered place. I want to have empathy with you. And so I'm sending my energy out and I'm feeling into your energy and I'm bringing that back into mine so that I can feel that. But then what they do generally is hold it there unless you've got really strong boundaries around that. And then it becomes part of your energy. It actually sits in your energy field.
Okay.
And this is why a lot of people are overwhelmed or hypersensitive when they're an empath.
Yeah. Well, I find this really interesting because whenever I talk to empaths, usually I'm told that they are, and that's why I bring the subject up. And young empaths, if they're not taught how to clean their energy, I always say to them, it's your number one priority now is to learn how to clean your energy, because otherwise it manifests into stomach disorders. And every time I say that, they say, I've had a stomach operation last month or last year, and I've had
Food intolerance or
these problems with the solar plexus organs, and so it's interesting to learn, even from my perspective, having this cosmic chat with Fiona and soon to be our audience in a second when we come and have a look and see what comments we've got. We can't actually read your comments from here, but we know roughly who's on the line, on the live feed. But that's a golden nugget for me of what I've learned out of even this discussion and understanding what the difference is between an empath and a clairsentient person.
Good, lovely. And and it's really important, I think, to know that difference and be conscious of that difference yourself, particularly if you are clairsentient and an empath as well, or if you're an empath and anything else. It's all about, for empaths, the way that I work teaching them is how to have a really strong boundary around bringing that information back into their own energy fields and having a stronger boundary around that.
Okay. Should we talk any more about the clairs, or should we?
Well, there's one more, claircognizance, which we may as well mention, because I'm sure some people out there are claircognizant. In fact,
put my hand up.
what I'd like to say about that one is that we are all actually using our claircognizance on a daily basis, but we're probably, for most people, they're not aware of the fact that they're doing this. So claircognizance means that you're an auditory digital person. So you receive information as an instant download into your mind, and you don't know where it came from. It's not created by you. It just arrives there, and it's then accompanied by an inner knowing that information is absolutely correct. So what generally happens with that, if you were to meet a new person, you'll instantly know something about that person without really knowing why or how. You know that. I'm sure you can acknowledge this as well. But you're just absolutely certain that what you know is true, and usually that's validated in some way for you as you start to talk to them. So claircognizance we all hold, and one of the things that you learn to do on the course is to actually work with it very consciously, because it's that tiny spark that comes in straight away, and it comes in so quickly that most of us miss it as our rational, logical mind takes over and pushes it away. So it's, for claircognizant people, it's about really getting to understand that first bit of information that comes in is absolutely spot on and accurate, and start to work with that. So claircognizance is all about your inner knowing and that instant download that you get straight into your mind. Usually people, not always, but usually people that are claircognizant are very mentally oriented. They use their mind a lot, and we're generally, the general consensus in the spiritual development community is that we need to quieten our mind, of course, and remove our mind in some way. Sometimes I've seen being taught, but for claircognizant people, their mind is a really beautiful tool to work with in their intuitive development.
I wonder how you'd go with me. I always think there's always room for improvement. It doesn't matter what level you think that you've achieved. I'm sitting here thinking, I want to sit in your class.
Well, it's funny because it's just, I like to look at things in a different perspective to the general way that we're taught things. And there is a lot of stuff out there that's been around for a very long time. And, we're working in a higher vibration now. Our awareness is broader now. And we need to look at things from a different perspective. And we need to work with things in a different way now because we're evolving, intuitively, spiritually. We're becoming higher vibrational ourselves, and so we need to work with a new understanding around these things. And that's hopefully what this course gives you, is a different perspective to work with.
I would say claircognizance is like Google on tap.
Yes, absolutely.
So you just get the seed of light and you've got all the data that you need and it just flows through. And it's not the same as buoyantly reading light.
No, not at all. They're very different. All of these 4 natural abilities that we hold are very different in the way that information comes through. And the other point is you can have 2 clairsentient people who both perceive their information in a completely different way to each other. Your intuitive process is completely unique to you, and that's why when you do this course or when you're working with any intuitive development, it should always be about the how you're receiving the information and not what that information is in the very beginning. Because the what will come, you'll get really good at it, and then it doesn't, you can trust it. But in the beginning, it's all about how am I receiving that information? How is my unique process working for me? And understanding the unique signs that you hold so that you can then start to develop it more easily and more quickly, of course.
Okay, well, let's have a look and see if anybody made any comments. If you've got any questions, anybody who... Oh, I'm just going over the camera there. Let's just see who's been on and maybe who's still with us. So, Christina, I don't know if you're still with us. I'm just going to move this back a little bit so that we can see it a bit closer. Rochelle, Philip, Lynette. What does that say?
I have no glasses.
Oh, it says, it's asking, these are all queries on whether we wanted to bring them into the session. Mark, Robin, Valentina. Hello, darling girl. Looks like you're still watching. Philip's still watching. Karen has been online. Hi, darling. Thank you for tuning in. Dale, don't know if he's still with us. Carolina. Oh, you've got Royce with you. Wonderful. Hi, Royce. And Bill. Does anybody have any questions? Oops. My knees went. If you're still on the line, well, live feed, if you could just tell us if you're still on by giving us a thumbs up. I presume nobody wants to ask a question at this point in time. Nothing? Somebody's giving us a thumbs up.
Oh, we're doing a good job then. There's no questions.
Okay. All right, well, nobody's asked any questions. If you've got any queries, let us know. Okay, so we're going to now talk, I think, about one of the other clair abilities, which is called clairtangency.
Oh, okay.
Which is all about psychometry. psychometry is something that you teach within your
Absolutely, yes.
class.
Yeah.
And did you want to talk about what psychometry is?
Yeah, so psychometry is the process of reading an object. So it can be a photograph, it can be something like a piece of jewellery, it can be something that, it's usually something quite small that you can hold in your hands because you're reading the energy of the object. So everything is made up of energy, and so every object that you wear, that you hold, that you sit on, holds an energy, and this is why it's important, to keep your space clear and work with the energy in your space as well, in your home or your working environment. But psychometry is a process of reading an object. So you can do it with photographs, you can do it with, as I said, little objects. So you hold them in your hand and you sense into them with your clair abilities, and you start to get information and receive information. And when I was talking earlier on about going to see the lady after my mother died, that was the reading she gave me, was through psychometry. She held my mum's ring and she gave me this most amazing reading about my mother. So it can be a really insightful process.
And so for people who get passed down pieces of jewellery as well,
Yes.
is there a process that you would suggest to them for clearing a piece of jewellery, and how you can actually clear a psychometric energy imprint in an object? Because when I've read an object in the past, sometimes you've got literally the person who made it, the person who thought about making it, there's so much information, who picked it up, who travelled with it, where it's been. It's like every place it's ever gone
That's
to,
right, yes.
all of that information, which is vast, is accessible in most things, and it can be any inanimate object, really. So for people who get passed down jewellery, which is quite important at a family level, how does one actually clear, not just white lighting it, the records on a piece of jewellery? Because sometimes they can hold, like, I've sensed off of jewellery in the past, massive amounts of emotion are attached to that piece of jewellery because that person had so much suffering as they exited out of this life.
Yeah.
And it's a valid, question. So
Yeah, sure. And I mean, I think the first question to ask yourself, particularly if it's a family heirloom, if it's something that's been passed down, is do you want to clear it? Because sometimes it can be a really nice connection to that person. I mean, I've never cleared the jewellery that I have of my mother's because I love having that connection to her. So that's the first question. And if you feel that it's impacting upon you in some way, then yes, absolutely, you should clear it. So there's lots of different ways that you can clear pieces of jewellery. As you said, Louise, you can white light it, you can use white sage to smudge it, to clear it. The most important thing with any clearing process is your intention, and what you really want to do is set an intention to clear this piece of jewellery or this object of all other energies other than your own. And then you can also ask to realign it to your own vibrational energy, so that it then goes through a process of clearing, and you can smudge it, and then you're realigning it to your own energy. And what you find then is, if you read a piece of jewellery that's been cleared, it will only hold the vibration of the person who's wearing it from then
that's
on.
good, that's useful. Okay, so where were we? We were talking about psychometry. Now this kind of leads into the Akashic records, because when you're reading a piece of jewellery or you're reading the energy behind something, the Akasha or the Akashic records is the term that is given to almost the fabric of space and time, through time, and the historical or alchemical information that object or energy signature contains. And so there are different types of Akashic reading. So I specialize myself in reading, through my clairvoyant vision, I pull in the energy signature of crystals and read and write about them. I've written extensively on sacredspace.global. Each piece of jewellery has got alchemical information about how this piece was created and what it does in the person's energy field in great depth.
Right.
And all the different alchemical combinations that you can make are relevant to, and I found I had to do this because it was happening in the store, and I would communicate the alchemy behind the pieces, and I had to write it all down because so I could communicate with more people than just the odd person that walks in the store. And so that's a library that's available on sacredspace.global, and I'm progressively loading more and more information is going to get loaded up there. And so psychometry is a form of reading records, or another classification for it is remote viewing. So there are also remote viewers who work in different capacities as psychic readers, reading different locations and looking at what's there. And then there is remote viewing when we do healing work, which taps into what you specialize in predominantly. And then there is the records on locations as well. And lately I've discovered that there is something called the cosmic Akasha, which is the planetary records and stellar records or stellar constellation records that I'm working my consciousness up into with trepidation.
I love it.
So Fiona specializes in Akashic records around a soul.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have a discussion about that now.
Okay. So a few years ago I started becoming really drawn to working within myself at my soul level. I'd heard this expression and what is my soul? I was really curious around what this aspect of myself was. I was already working in my business, I was already working intuitively, but I became more and more and more drawn towards exploring my soul aspects. I really wanted to understand myself more clearly, and it was that kind of inner journey that I think eventually we're all drawn into as we expand our intuitive abilities. We kind of just feel drawn to know ourselves better. Well, I was anyway. Definitely for me that was the case. So I started to learn about this weird and wonderful thing called the Akasha, and I found that working within the Akasha was really easy for me. It was a place where I felt really comfortable. I could connect into information there really easily, and so it helped me with my own healing process of clearing blocks and clearing my own limitations and the things that were holding me back from stepping into who I really wanted to be. So over a period of years and a period of different learnings and exploring different techniques and different ways of working within the Akasha at soul level, I started to develop my soul awakening sessions, which are the readings I do within the Akasha. And these focus on exploring, first of all, who you really are at soul level. So not who you might perceive yourself to be, because very often we kind of have an inkling of who we really are, but we know we're not showing up as that person. And we kind of have an inkling of the gifts that we hold, but we can't really recognize them or acknowledge them that clearly. We can see them very clearly in other people, but we can't always see them within ourselves. And so this reading starts at that point. It gives you a very clear picture of who you are, the gifts and attributes that you hold, the challenges that you face, the wounding that you're working with in this lifetime, and lots of different aspects of your soul and the soul journey that you're on. And so you start the reading by knowing yourself fully, and this information I find so self-empowering for people, because it gives you, again, a different perspective of yourself that you may not be able to see beforehand. It allows you to see yourself in a new light. The second part of the reading focuses on whatever is blocking you at this time. So you go into this reading with a strong intention of what you want to work on and what you want to that's what I focus on. So when I'm in the Akashic record, when I'm connected to your Akashic record, which is always done with your permission, then I will ask the right questions that I need to ask for your intention in order to get the answers to bring through the information that allows me to understand why you're feeling blocked at this time. And that information might be rooted in a past lifetime that you've had, or it might be rooted in the present lifetime that you're in, and the certain situations that you're going through. Often there's a strong thread that runs through lifetimes that you kind of follow, that brings you to the point in this lifetime where you're experiencing these blocks. And then the third part of the reading, of course, gives you the tools, arms you with the information and the tools to work with to clear those blocks. This is where you take responsibility for clearing your blocks out of your energy so that you can move forward. And that's basically the reading that we offer here at Sacred Space.
I found the process that I went through with you and other Akashic record readers fascinating because first of all, you know you've got this limitation that you can't seem to break through yourself, and that's the doorway to access through into the lifetimes and get the historical information. And the historical information is fascinating, and what you're able to convey to somebody in great detail, I might add, about what's gone on for them. It's not Fiona facilitates this where she independently accesses your Akashic records and then comes to you and gives you this massive download of history, which is really quite incredible. That's very impressive. And then whether you're conscious of that history or not doesn't really matter at that point, because when she hits the gifts and talents from that lifetime, you totally relate to what those gifts and talents are, because they're the things that drive you in this lifetime. They're the things that you're really passionate about, that you already invest your energy in. And by going through this process of clearing and moving to the next level, it really accelerates your direction to put even more of your energy into what you're passionate about.
Absolutely, because usually your blocks are going to show up in the energy that drives you. Because if it wasn't showing up there, you wouldn't want the reading. You'd be going out there and doing all the things that you want to do. So what you said there, you put it beautifully actually. It was just, how that clearing those blocks can really help you then to move into that energy more and create what you're here to create, really, what you're designed to do.
Yeah, even when you're already doing what you love and what you're working on, there's always further development. We're always work in progress. It doesn't matter where you've managed to get to, there's always another level. Absolutely. And so I found it really beneficial to me to have done so much work in my past life records. Thanks for all the thumbs up. And it's a fascinating process because you also can uncover things that make you realize why you have the family around you that you've got, because you've spent lifetimes with these people before. I've found that we can reincarnate down the genetic line, and my father and his partner Barbara, who's absolutely adorable, we know what lifetimes we've known each other in before.
Oh, how beautiful.
Yes, yeah, which is quite amazing. And a lot of people that I know from the local area, I think there's 6 people, men, that fought in a battle with me, and they are all conscious. Each one of them has come in through the store, remembers the battle that we fought in.
Oh my goodness.
In southern France.
How interesting.
Yeah. So I even meet people who know me from former lives. I've had many that have known me in my Viking lifetimes too.
I love that. And that's the fascinating thing when we start to explore our past life experiences and that thread that weaves through that. And one of the loveliest readings that I do for people is a relationship reading. When people use this for marriages, they use it with their children or relatives, or with their parents even. background to the karmic experiences that they're having in this lifetime, and why that's playing out for them now in this lifetime as well. It's just looking back and seeing what influences, what choices they made, how many lifetimes they've shared together. All of that information, it can be really interesting, but more than that, really helpful to heal any, issues within the relationship. And I think the biggest thing that most people seem to get out of those readings is understanding each other more, really understanding, because the nicest thing I think you get out of these readings is a deeper understanding of yourself, and I think that knowledge on its own is powerful. But when you can understand your partner or your child or your parent more as well, it can really heal those relationships if you're having problems. Yeah.
Brilliant. So valuable. Everything that we work on ourselves impacts the whole too, right down your genetics, into your family, whatever we work on, whatever the universe is teaching you, it ripples right out.
That's right. That's
and
right.
This is why the whole world is changing.
Yes. Thank goodness.
So, if anybody wants a session with Fiona,
just add something.
Yeah.
The Akashic readings can be just as valuable via Skype as they are in person. So most of the time when I'm working, I do these sessions via Skype. You don't have to be in person to benefit from these. So wherever you are in the world or in Australia, you can have one of these sessions, and they work really well that way. They're all recorded for you, and you get lots of notes that support the session as well as the clearing processes. So there's a lot of information that you get with those sessions that really help you moving forward in the future as well.
Yeah, and there's also a sheet that you give a person that is a clearing protocol for the person to, I would say, my advice would be to voice record that on your own phone.
Yes.
And then run that in meditation for the amount of days that Fiona has suggested to you.
Absolutely, and I get more and more clients saying that's how they're working with it actually, because it's easier than reading it. So just recording it and listening to it is a great way to work with it.
And my experience in meditation and doing this sort of work, if you're listening in meditation, make sure you're isolated from anybody else in the house. And just be present if you feel clunks, shifts, flashes of light, you feel hot energy rise or dense energy rise off of you, and you feel celestial energy exchange in your energy field. Just be present with what you're breathing in and out of the whole process that to shift your whole quantum field. And the neurons of your brain actually rewire during this process as well. So the neurons of your mind are like, I always say to people, they're like, I can hardly see my hands because of the comments. They're like this, they're like tree branches. And when they have electricity that jumps from one to the other. And when we make changes in our perception and our knowledge and our energy field, these neurons actually rewire and change direction.
Right. Oh, I've learned something.
They do. And this is how we make the shifts, because the energetic charge is no longer running through the neurons of the brain. They're like tree branches. Okay. And so you're constantly working to upgrade and upgrade and upgrade your energy field. This is what happens at a quantum level within your mind. And I've never known anybody to go backwards rather than forwards.
Oh, no.
It's always, yes, you have to go down and dig up the past sometimes and dig up your emotions and things, and it can be not a brilliant process, dark night of the soul moment, but that's not what happens in an Akashic reading.
It's actually very gentle, the process,
it is.
And it's more about the information and the knowledge, and that's really where your healing process starts. And we have a tendency, I know a lot of people have said to me in the past that they're really worried about working with past life stuff, because it feels as if you've got to go back and you've got to feel what you went through, and it's going to be awful and traumatic. Most times the blocks that you're experiencing now are created simply out of choices you made in that lifetime that took you out of alignment with who you are. It's just a simple choice. It wasn't a dreadful death or something nasty didn't happen to you. It's a choice that you made in certain circumstances that took you out of alignment and created a block of energy. And so it's a gentle process. And most times, I think probably every time the past life stories are relayed to people, they can identify with that story, with that situation, because they hold that information at soul level. They know that they've experienced that lifetime, and they know that they've made those choices. They can see themselves making those choices. You know, that's how it works. So it's a very gentle process. And even the clearing and releasing process is very gentle as well. You might get those shifts that you mentioned, but it's always done in a beautiful...
Yeah, it's not some of the other stuff that I do.
No.
You don't get loads of emotion coming up,
No.
whereas sometimes with some of the other stuff that I do, you do get emotion coming up, and you have to be present when you're in that emotion and
That's
allowing
right.
it to come out of the physical body,
Yeah.
because that's alchemy.
Exactly.
Tears are alchemy.
Yeah, and they're good. They're good tears.
I know, but it's always like, oh God,
Do
don't.
I have to? I had one of those moments last week, floating around quite happily in my swimming pool, and then just burst into tears.
Oh my God.
I thought that's great, but
That would have
it
been
needed
the
to come
moon.
out. Oh, it was the moon.
Yeah,
Absolutely
blame
the
it on
moon.
that
Blame it on the moon.
moon.
The super bloody moon, I called it.
Blood moon eclipse.
Yes, that was the real name for
Yes.
it, but in my world it was a super bloody moon.
Well, I felt that moon was about rising up above your current matrix, to look outside to see what other matrices have going on inside them, to pull back that knowledge
Okay.
and bring that back into your reality in
Yeah.
order to shift your energy out to a wider capacity. And I saw that happening with various different individuals.
That's interesting, isn't it?
And
Yeah.
then there was a whole collective of people that were processing deep emotional woundings.
Yeah. There was
So-
a lot of that going on.
Yeah, there was
Yes. It was a
two
big one.
things happening
Yeah.
with that.
And we're
moon.
still in that eclipse gateway at the moment,
Yes,
between
there's
the
one-
solar eclipse coming up. So we've got this energy that we're sitting in at the moment.
Yeah, there's
that's
a
supporting.
one, I think, on the 15th. I
Yeah.
posted an article on it the other day, and I think it's more of the divine feminine upgrades happening.
Yeah.
And so, just going back, flipping back to Fiona, if anybody wants to do work with Fiona, you need to have some particular block or barrier that you cannot get through. That's the trigger for doing work with Fiona, because they're the gate. That's the gate, the lock. To
Yeah, very
unlock what you
often.
need to do.
That's it. Very
the
often people
records.
choose those sessions because they've done a lot of clearing work and they still haven't reached that one. You know, they haven't got that last little piece of the jigsaw to clear through the final block. So that draws a lot of people. I'm finding more and more actually those are the people that are coming to me now. So if you've been doing a lot of clearing but you haven't quite been able to push through something, that's the ideal session for you. But equally, if you're experiencing other things, you can work on literally anything: health, finances, relationships, or career. All of those life areas you can work on with the Akashic Records. Right across the board.
But the history is the really
Yeah.
fascinating part
it's
of
lovely.
it.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah,
I
I'm
love
sure
my
you do.
job.
And also, might I add, I've done multiple amounts of different Akashic records as well as quantum kinesiology with Asha, who's in the house. And I've stepped in and out of different timelines doing different healing work. And it's fascinating even now, after doing the amount of work I've done, you can still continue to keep unveiling more stuff about these lifetimes that you've had and clearing more around those lifetimes. So it's not necessarily just doing one-off work and then you're sorted, but you might not want to do, you might revisit after a year something like what Fiona does.
That's it, and I offer that as I call it a current situation reading. So what happens is when you have that initial session, you get a huge amount of information. There's a lot of information to take on board there. So you know, very often when you do that first clearing, it can be a big shift, and you need to integrate that and start to work in a different way. And you know, your belief system can change, your emotions change, your physical body can change. There's a lot going on when you do those big shifts. But what you generally find, if you like that way of working and you sort of go back into your day-to-day life and you move along and you grow and you expand, and then you hit another little wall and it springs into your mind, oh, I did that Akashic reading, that really worked for me. You can do a current situation reading, which isn't as big and in-depth because you don't need all that information about yourself again. It just deals with what you're experiencing at that time, and then it works with a similar clearing process. So it's a quicker way to work through it. And the people that I find that come back for those just do what you just described there, really, Louise. They clear it quickly. Okay, so now I'm conscious of it and I'm aware of what it is. I know what it is, so I can clear it. Got the process, just go on and do it. And it is really quite simple and easy to do. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be, no clearing work at this point in our lives has to be really hard, really difficult and take a long time, because we're really working at a different vibrational awareness than that now, and we can clear things very quickly. So
20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good perspective to hold, so that you know that yourself.
Yeah. Well, I think everybody is aware that time is slightly distorted now. They don't seem to have the same concept of time.
No.
I quite often will be, like I said to you this morning, I wake up and I go, I have no idea what day it is. And I get wiped in between clients, and sometimes you have no memory at all. And I think part of it, as well, is the planetary shift, the pole shift, and the magnetics of the Earth actually directly impacts our brains. And did you know that if the poles shifted quite a lot, we would all be blind for a few days, because it governs our eyesight.
No, I didn't know that.
Yes.
It's quite scary.
So if somebody turns the
that,
lights off, like Day of the Trippids, then make sure that you just don't lose the plot, because it's okay, it's only the magnetic core.
Well, it's interesting too.
Because we're Earth beings, we're connected to the planet on the gravitational field, it keeps us grounded. It does control the resonance of our brain, and so I think this is all the stuff happening within the core of the planet is directly impacting our concept of time sometimes.
That's right. Yeah. And one of the things you can find out as well when you have your Akashic reading is where your soul originated. So there are people that hold really strong connections to the poles, and they are really affected by those shifts. And so very often when you have that reading and you can identify these different aspects of yourself, you're armed with information to be able to work with it more easily, to consciously know that these things are going to affect you. And actually, for most people, get that realization, oh, that's why that happens to me, or that's why I feel that so much, so that they can then work with it rather than against it, which is usually what happens.
Up until recently, I always knew when there was going to be a big earthquake, or a big eruption, volcanic eruption. Probably because I've done so much grid work, connection to the ley lines of the Earth,
and tsunamis and things like that. You're very aware of.
Yeah, definitely.
Anything that affects the fabric of the Earth, basically.
Yeah, I'd say it's a different type of sensing again. I was just going to go into dreams, because I get a lot of people talking to us about interpreting dreams.
Okay.
Because a lot of people are very much aware when they're asleep, and how to develop their dream state, or the information that comes through in dream state. And I always say to people, it's better if you don't place too much importance on what happens when you're asleep in your dreams, especially when they're fear-based or they're anxiety-based, because they're usually just the brain going through a playing out of a drama in order for you to have something to do whilst you're asleep. But obviously some people refer to dream books and look up referencing in dream encyclopedias and things like that. But I would, I usually recommend to people that they don't spend too much time focused on what they've seen in a dream, because it is much more random than when we're conscious and awake. And using your sensing abilities when you're conscious and awake is so much better.
I agree, and I don't really do any kind of dream interpretation myself, but I'm a big believer in working with your intuition anyway around those things. So what you interpret your dream as intuitively may be very different to how someone else may interpret it for you. So I think it's one of those things where you go to your inner guidance again to find, which is basically what you said there, yeah.
And one other thing, again, that I've just thought of that I would talk about is meditation, and what we see, sense and perceive in meditation, which is invaluable to us, because sometimes it's a gift from the universe, it's a gift of healing or a shift to move you to the next level when you do regular practice of meditation. And quite often when I was younger, I've been doing meditation for 28 years now, I would find that I would see something and I'd look at it and I'd think, oh, what is that? You only have to ask in the moment that you catch the vision, and ask your higher self what relevance this has to you, or let it dissipate and go away, and then the universe will show you in some form of synchronicity where you'll see something on TV, or you'll pick up a book and it will give you the answer, or you'll overhear a conversation, or something will present itself, usually within 3 days. The universe speaks back to you.
Yeah.
And it shows you what you were learning in that moment, in that meditation practice, or what the universe was trying to communicate to you through its lexicon of language.
And I would add to that, of course, that you would get that information through your feelings, through your vision, through your hearing, or through your inner knowing. It will come in all of those different ways, whichever you're predisposed to.
But I'm just saying, if you just see a vision, but you don't know what the vision is, and you want to know what that was that you were looking at, or what flew in meditation, if you can ask the question, or the universe will come back around and it will show you with some form of synchronicity in the next few days.
Usually it does, absolutely. And meditation is something that we do cover in the intuitive development course as well, because we can tend to also have a perception that meditation is about sitting, cross-legged with humming away for 20 minutes, and it can put people off, and it's not like that. So we do explore different ways of meditating as well, and most of them will surprise you, I think. They're not what you perceive them to be.
And did you want to talk about what was in the 3 levels that we're doing this year?
Level 1 basically gives you a really strong foundation to grow your intuition from. So in level 1 you get a lot of notes that support what we learn in the classes. There's a lot of information to take on board, but that's so that in 7 weeks you're going to develop your intuition to a certain level, but what you want to be able to do is to continue that journey in your own time, because with a lot of the processes it's about practicing them in the beginning and putting some energy towards them, and you want to be able to do that in your own space and time. So throughout the 7 weeks of level 1, what we do is we explore first of all, identify your strongest natural intuitive ability or abilities. Some people work with 2 side by side. So that's the first thing, so that you know over those 7 weeks that you're developing a specific clairability. The second thing we look at are the 3 keys to successful intuitive development. The 3 key areas where you will generally experience blocks, or you'll come up against a block or hit a wall with your intuitive development. So we talk about those 3 key areas, and I give you lots of tools to work with, so if you do experience those blocks you can push through them. We begin to sensitize your body to receive process as much as anything else. So you need to sensitize your body. As Louise said earlier on, running that channel of light through your body is a process of sensitizing it. It's kind of like rehabilitation, if you like. You're sensitizing your body to start to work in a way that it probably did do quite naturally when you were young, and you've just lost the ability to do that. And then we talk about how to create space to receive your guidance. So, you know, we do need to carve out a little bit of space in our lives to allow that information to come through. So we talk about the different ways to do that. And also you'll meet one of your spirit guides. We do a process of connecting you into your spirit guides. And we look at your energetic bodies as well, and the part that they play in your intuitive process, looking at your etheric bodies, your aura, and also your chakras and that sort of thing, just to give you an idea of how they influence your own intuitive abilities. And then we do look at different techniques in level 1, psychometry, automatic writing, working with the pendulum, just different tools that you can use to help create a stronger connection to your intuition. And then finally you get 7, each week you'll get a different psychic tool to add to your psychic toolkit, which gives you lots of exercises to work with so that you can keep developing and using those exercises either for yourself or with other people in the future. So there's a lot packed into that 7-week course.
Excellent. So this first level starts on the 20th of March.
That's right, yeah.
And if anybody would like more information about it, the information is on the website under workshops and classes.
Excellent.
And then Psychic Development level 1. So if you want to have a look, it's on sacredspace.global.
Excellent. And then we've got level 2. So level 1 gives you a really strong foundation from which to grow your intuition. Level 2 is all about having fun and practicing what you've already learned. So it's exploring different ways of using your intuition, and in a fun way with other people who are all, of course, on that same journey with you. So as I said earlier on, I really focus more on how the information is coming through to you, not what the information is. But by the time you start to develop it more strongly in level 2, what you're looking for as much as anything is the things that trigger your intuition and the things that you don't. So this gives you this gives you the opportunity to explore different techniques and different ways of working intuitively so that you can find out what works for you, but also what doesn't work for you. Because I know you may have done the same thing. I've invested a lot of money in courses and things before that really haven't worked for me. You know, they haven't worked intuitively for me. And so this gives you the opportunity to try different things. So in level 2, we work with crystals, and you get your own crystal toolkit to own, to take away with you, and helps you to explore the wonderful world of crystals, and just gives you a taste of whether working with crystals, which I know Louise obviously loves.
I'm obsessed with.
Yeah. Hence this shop, this beautiful space. So, you know, you can really see whether that's something that works for you too. And then we explore psychometry. We were talking about that this evening, but we explore 4 different ways of working with psychometry. So one way might work for you and another way might not. You know, there are different ways that you can work psychometrically. And then learning to channel. So opening up a channel of communication is a beautiful way to work with your intuition. And learning how to channel through information from a higher vibrational source can be, I mean, it's the way that I work. All of my guidance that I bring through for people, all of working within the Akashic Records, is all channeled information. So learning how to channel can be a really valuable tool as well. Also, we're going to practice scrying, which is an ancient form of divination. It's really fun. I really love doing that. Most people get a lot out of that one. And we'll be looking at different ways to scry as well. So there's different techniques, again, that you can use. And then we're going to deepen your awareness into your etheric bodies. There's a huge amount of information that we hold in our emotional body, in our mental body, in our physical body, get that information, how you can access that information intuitively is a really great tool to use.
Brilliant for self-healing.
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, always, first of all, to use it on yourself, but then if you want to explore using it on other people, I mean, that's how you start to work with energetic healing and all of those different practices. And then through that as well, you're going to learn how to balance your own chakras. So a chakra balancing is part of that course as well. And that's a beautiful gift to give to someone else, but also to work with within yourself daily as well. And then finally, we work with oracle cards. So this isn't tarot, which is a very in-depth way of learning to read cards. It's learning how to read oracle cards, but not by picking up the book and looking through it for your answers. Learning how to lay your cards out and work with your intuition to read them, which to me is a much more valuable way of working with oracle cards. So that's level 2. Again, there's a lot in there. It gives you the opportunity to explore different things and see what works for you.
This is why it's such a popular course.
Yeah. And then we've got level 3, which is new to Sacred Space. And level 3 is
Last year.
Last year, that's right.
Year.
Yeah, sorry. It's new. It's just new, still in my mind. So level 3 is a journey within. So for me, I know that I kind of started my intuitive journey looking within anyway and wanting to develop my intuition for my own health more than anything. But for a lot of people who are just drawn to using their intuition for different reasons, they find that they actually go on an inner journey through that process. It's a kind of awakening process that we start to intuitively be guided into as we expand our awareness and we tap more consciously into our intuition. So level 3 I've developed as a journey within. So this is a very personal journey. Even though you're doing it in a class with other people, I think it's always great to do a personal inner journey with the support of other people who are also on that journey, because you can share your experiences with each other. So with this course, you're looking at learning different meditation techniques. So as we were talking about earlier on, there's lots of different ways to meditate, and there is not one size that suits all. So it's learning different ways of finding that quietness, finding that calmness within. We look at we look at your intuitive self and I'll give you awareness tools to work with that help you to overcome things like anxiety or depression, or just to work more consciously on yourself and to heal those things that you might be experiencing at the physical level. Also, you'll learn how to clear negative energy from your energetic bodies and from your chakra system, which again is a really valuable tool to work with. And you'll learn how to work with your guides more consciously. So by that stage, level 3, you might be getting stronger connections with the guidance that's around you. And for me personally, in the very beginning, I worked with some really beautiful guides who I still know are around me, but nowadays I work more with my higher self. But in the beginning, for me, working with spirit guides, with angels, with different types of guidance was a really beautiful process. So we're going to look at that more consciously. And then working with colour. As Louise was saying earlier on, working with colour has been a beautiful experience for her. Colour is very healing and has a lot of therapeutic qualities. And even if you're not visual, even if you don't see colour, you can still feel colour like I do, or you can still know that colour is there. So you can still work with it, even if clairvoyance isn't your primary or your strongest clairability. And then also you'll learn how to give an aura diagnosis, how to read somebody's aura, and we'll be using colour for that process as well. So it's a very exciting and interesting way to develop more of that inner awareness of self.
And it's a good gradual process because it's 3 steps.
Absolutely.
Which is 21. Which is a magical number because most initiations or attunements are over 21 days, but this is over 21 lessons now.
But there's breaks in between.
But
so
there's
it's
breaks
not...
in between.
Yeah.
And but it's nice to get involved in a group environment.
Yes, absolutely.
And working within a space like this is really amplified with all the crystal frequencies that are in here.
I mean, coming into this space to work, and whenever you're working in a group environment, the energy of the group really supports the processes that you go through. So you find that when you're doing guided journeys or meditations, or when you're actually intuiting with each other, that is supported by the energy that you all hold in the group. And as Louise said, in a space like this that's already beautifully held, it's a great place to come in and experience a course like this.
Clear and amplified.
And I like that. Yes, it is. It's a much better way of putting it than I could.
Yeah, well, it would be hard to walk in here and like not feel it as well, wouldn't
exactly.
it?
Yeah.
Most people can feel how clean the energy is in here. So I always give the example, it's not like George Street, because George Street in Sydney has just got so much energy, like old historical energies that are left there. It's the polar opposite. It's very clean energy. And so does anybody have any questions? We haven't had a single person. We've had quite a few people watching tonight. Has anybody got any questions? I'll try not to cover the camera and see. Oh, we've been missing like who's been online. Still with you, ladies. Great discussion. Thank you. Rochelle, ladies, I often hear a very high-pitched noise in the left ear when I meditate with crystals. Hold on a second. I can just see. We couldn't see these going past when you were talking. I feel it is spirit, but I'm unsure.
So I would say that is your clairaudience being ignited. So very often when people are starting to work more consciously with their clairaudient abilities, and when you're working with spirit, so when you're working in a mediumship capacity, clairaudience and clairvoyance are generally the strongest ability, strongest intuitive abilities that you work with. When it's being ignited in that way, you can very often hear a ringing or a bell-like sound or a continuous tone in your ear, in one, as you said, in one ear. Sometimes people think they're getting tinnitus or something like that, but it isn't that. It's just an awakening. It's just a kind of opening of your clairaudient ability. So I would say that whilst you're in that heightened state of awareness, when you're in meditation, you're opening up, and that's allowing that to start to come in. It's opening it up. So what I would say to you is that the more you do that, the less that you're going to hear that. Sometimes that can be a little bit confusing, because if we know it's something opening up and starting and then it goes away, we can feel like it's gone, but it actually isn't. It's just that your body, your physical body, has got used to it, and so it's adjusted itself accordingly, and you've integrated that now. I don't know if you can add something.
I can, because I'm being reminded of things that I know.
Okay, good.
Crystal-wise, the kyanite family of crystals are all connected to the clair abilities, as well as quartz, because quartz is an amplifier.
Yeah.
And as well as celestial quartz, which is an amplifier of their libraries where they help you connect to the Akashic records. But kyanites, especially, you'll see them. I'm not wearing one time I'm not wearing my kyanites, and I'm wearing blue butterfly wings. I'm always wearing blue kyanite in my ears because it's the main clear audience channel crystal.
Okay, beautiful.
And kyanite comes in black kyanite, orange kyanite, indigo kyanite, green kyanite.
Lots of choices.
But they're all linked to the clair abilities.
Right. Oh.
So blue kyanite is a crystal that might help Rochelle.
Okay, good.
And I would suggest that you open to channel and breathe in and out of your heart and go into the kyanite crystal and pull the energy backwards and forwards and let it run in your energy field, and it might just help clear your channeling abilities, or you might want to wear kyanite in your ears like I do.
Beautiful.
So let's just see. Again, I keep doing that. Thank you for the thumbs up. Is it Rochelle that's still on the live? And if anybody's got any more questions about this Facebook Live, my father's saying that the background music's too loud, or is it me? It's a bit late. We could still know that beginning. I'd love, this is Dale, I'd love to book a reading with Fiona.
Oh.
Can I get a thumbs up, Dale? Is it with Fiona that you'd like to have a reading, an Akashic reading? Dale's a very beautiful friend of mine.
Oh, really?
He's coming up to Sydney later on this year. Yes, he is. And then, thank you, darling. Hi, sweetie. And Rochelle would also like a reading with Fiona.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, you just only have to call the store and then I can book something in for you. So this is Robin. These readings are truly amazing and have a big impact on your life. Yes, they do. Very much so. Thank you, Robin. Hi, Fiona. This is Dale. Could you tell me if the sessions are suitable for beginners?
Is that the intuitive development?
I don't know. I think what he means is the session being the Akashic session.
Right.
To uncover, like go through a block, but uncover stuff about information about your lifetimes. And I think you can answer this in a second. I'll just scroll down the bottom. God, we've got loads of comments here. Dale, could you tell me if you were talking about a session being an Akashic reading, or if you're referring to the
Intuitive development.
Psychic Development course? Can you just tell me with a comment down the bottom, please, darling? Got a thumbs up. He's going to type something. Bianca. I think that's Bianca watching as well. Hi, darling. Yeah, okay, so an Akashic reading.
Right, okay. So Akashic readings can literally be done for anyone. I do them for children as well as for adults as well. So very often parents will have them for their children. So it doesn't matter of where you are in your life.
Wow, that'd be so fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Doesn't matter where you're at in your life, you can do this. Working in the Akasha is a beautiful, gentle process. So, you know, whatever you're experiencing, whatever is going on for you, the Akashic record reading can help with that.
Okay. Now, thank you, Dale, darling. I'm just going to go back because we were like halfway up the screen. Okay, what have we got? I'm just trying to find, there's a whole load of different people that have been on. Sue, I'm moving away from people that don't work for me anymore, and I felt it coming too. Right. Okay. I don't know what to say to that. It says purple is my colour. Maybe it was relative to something we were talking about earlier that I don't know.
Yeah, so we've just missed it.
Yeah. Hi, darling Narelle. Hi, sweetie. What's this say? Lewis says how to open a channel to connect to God. So, can we give him a bit of advice on how to open up?
I don't know how to answer that
I'm
one.
going to answer
You
that.
answer that one, yeah.
Okay, so one tip that I give to people who have done no meditation work or no opening to channel or not been initiated into running energy. If you shut your eyes and take your awareness into your energy field and feel outside in your energy field, like up here, and then visualize taking your consciousness off to the sun, whether the sun is up and it's in the daytime or whether it's in the nighttime, just make sure your eyes are shut. And then consciously breathing in for 2 seconds, breathing in that connection to the sun. And with the 2 seconds after that, you push the energy down. And this is the beginnings of opening to channel. So you start with something simple like the sun's light, or you could change that to the earth's energy and pull the earth's magnetic field energy up. It depends whether you feel that you need to pull in light or you need to pull in grounding. And that's what I'd suggest that you do, and you practice that for at least 21 days, and then take it up to taking your intention to sunlight, and then requesting that you change it to a color or something like that, and explore it. So that's what I would say is the basics of connection to
absolutely,
the universe.
And so, then your intention where you want to connect to, of course, drives that process to what you want to connect with.
Obviously.
Yeah.
And there's so much more to learn around connecting to channel. There's also one really good book. I'm just trying to think. I can't remember I know the author, but I don't know the title. Like, I haven't got it on the shelf right now. If somebody needs a title on opening to channel, then you can send me an email to contact@sacredspace.global, and I'll figure out which title it is and send you a message. Okay. So hopefully that's all right, Lewis. And then Sue, I see people and I'm sure I'm awake. I saw a friend shortly after his funeral clearly. Yep. I'm still uncomfortable. Can you help with that?
Absolutely. So very often when your clairvoyance is triggered in that way, and you're seeing people that have passed over, it can mean a few different things. So first of all, it can mean that you have somewhere in your energies, it's a really strong connection to working with passed over people. And very often when you're in the Akashic record of someone, for instance, you can see whether they're naturally predisposed to working in that way. You know, they have that energy within them. What that means is that you actually kind of shine out a little light that passed over loved ones are attracted to. They can sense that light and they attach to it. And if you are working with your clairvoyance as your strongest ability, you can see those beings, you can see those probably earthbound spirits, or they may be passed over, that are attaching to that light. That can be quite scary if you don't have a very clear understanding of what it is that you're seeing or why you're seeing it. So very often we hold a lot of misconceptions about what spirit is and why it's connecting with it. And part of the course that we do here is teaching you about that, because it does impact on quite a lot of people. Particularly, I would say, more often than not, clairvoyant people, because they see these things and it's very scary. I mean, it can be equally scary if you hear something and you don't know what it is, or you feel something, but actually visually seeing something can be very uncomfortable for a lot of people. So what I would say to you is learning a little bit more about what it is that you're seeing, why you're seeing it, will really help you to understand that. And then you can make choices around whether you see it again in the future or not. Because the most important thing to understand about our intuition is that we are having the third dimensional experience. We are living in the physical. We have total 100% control over our intuitive abilities. We sometimes don't feel like we have if we're impacted by these things, but we absolutely do. Most of the time when you have that knowledge and you work with that awareness and and you know what it is that's influencing you, then you can make different choices so that you're not impacted by it again in the future. Or equally, you can make choices to work with it if that's how you feel you want to go. You again have free will and choice. Just because you hold that energy doesn't mean you have to work in that way, or you have to see those things.
I would like to add, my childhood was very difficult for me because I could see so much stuff in the UK, and wherever I went with my parents was always haunted. It was like every property, every house, every place, every town, I could see what was there. And I actually, I wish I'd had a teacher younger. I had a teacher from 17 onwards, and I made a conscious choice that I wanted to block mediumship, and I don't want to do it because it pestered me my whole childhood. So why would I want to live my life being pestered by people who passed over? So by finding a teacher that you can learn how to explore your psychic senses, and having that connection with a teacher where you've got somebody you can talk to, is a really good way to explore and clear those fear-based programs. Because it was only after I started to sit in meditation with a teacher and learn to explore energy and consciousness and become more empowered and go off on a mission in order to make sure I know how to command dominion over my own energy field, did I release all the fear or the energy behind my psychic abilities around mediumship.
Right,
and I made the conscious choice to shut it off. And I'm probably at a point where now I would be okay with opening the door to it again.
Yeah.
But at that point in my life, I wanted to shut it down.
Yeah.
But explore other forms of psychic abilities. So I hope that helps, Sue.
And it's important also to realise that there's no right or wrong choice. It's just what's right for you.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to explore it at this time, know and understand that you can learn how to stop that happening for you as well.
Okay. And then Rochelle is still with us. Dale saying you are wonderful. I think that's both of us. I don't know
We'll
whether
both
that's...
take it.
We'll take it.
Thanks, Dale.
Thanks, Louis. And I think Louis, and I think that's everybody. Does anybody have any other questions? And then I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've got coming up at Sacred Space. So my next cosmic chat is going to be about Reiki and opening to channel, and I'm going to do it with Robin, and it's going to happen on the 7th of March. So we're in February right now. I wrote January the other day.
No.
It was just like total no concept of time at all. And just quickly, I have an event on the Law of Attraction coming up with Barry next week. It's an evening class, which is $55 for 2 hours on Wednesday, which is all about your relationship with the Law of Attraction. And thank you, Fiona and Louise. Thanks, Sue.
Thank you.
And then also we have Reiki 2 coming up on the 28th and 29th of April. And anybody who's looking to start the Reiki journey from scratch, we have Reiki 1 and Reiki 2 later on in the year on the 20th of May. And then you can do your Reiki 2 further on, like 3 months after, on the 18th and 19th of August. And for anybody in the Sacred Space family that has already done Reiki 2, there's a Reiki 3 happening on the 15th and 16th of December. So, I think we'll wrap it up.
We're done.
Thank you, Dale. It's a pleasure to have all you people watching us, and thank you so much for joining the Sacred Space Global Group community page now. I absolutely love posting little tidbits of different spiritual teachers up online,
and what's happening with the Ascension energy. Look out for the stuff with Tom Lesher and Meg Benedictine. Meg Benedictine does very reasonably priced, I think they're $12 activations.
Wow.
She's really good. It's a complete quantum workout.
Excellent.
I would say for people who are a bit more adept at meditation. So I usually post a link from her. And Tom Lesher, who's also called Kai Patcher, he does a weekly broadcast which is exceptional on the collective consciousness astrological shift that's happening to everyone.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether you've hopped onto the Sacred Space Global Group, but
of course. Absolutely.
And what else can I tell you about what's going on at the moment? I think we'll just end there, and thank everybody for coming online and hanging out with us tonight. It's a pleasure as always to hold sacred space for you all. And if you've got any questions before we go, you might want to say something. Thank you very much. Rochelle says, very informative. Thank you, darling. I'm glad that we managed to express ourselves completely. I think we did.
Thank you.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Thanks
night.
for joining us.
Thanks.
Bye.